Hi
and welcome to the Tech Lab. My name is Christian, and together we will have a closer look at the new 4K action cam with the simple name Box from the house of Foxeer. I will tell you why we got 3 cameras from Foxeer and how my conclusion of a month-long test has turned out. But first we look at the camera from the datasheet, how easy the free app works, how good is the picture quality, and of course we compare the box with the GoPro Session 4 and 5 as well as with the Actioncam 3. But I don't want to talk about it any further, so let's get going on. So, what can the camera do according to the manufacturer? With the resolutions and the frame rates, this looks very representative. So we have 720p, which means small HD, then of course full HD or called 2K, 2.5K, 2.7K, and of course 4K. We can record all resolutions with a minimum of 25 or 30 FPS, and as smaller we set the resolutions, we have more FPS available. With some resolutions, we still have the option to use Supervision.
Wir auch dann noch die Option auf Supervision. Dazu kommen wir aber noch später.
The heart of the camera is an IMX170 sensor with 12 megapixels. This is a CMOS sensor from Sony from the XMO series. And GoPro is very reserved with regard to the built-in sensor, but after a long investigation it seems that this sensor was also used in the GoPro Hero 3 Black. With Session 4 and 5 it is not quite clear, but there are not many possibilities left, so I guess the successor of the IMX 377 in the Session 5, because it is supposed to be installed in the Mavic Pro as well.
IMX 377, da dieser auch vermutlicherweise in der Mavic Pro verbaut sein soll.
The camera weighs about 73 grams with all card and accessories, and is therefore equal to the GoPro Session 5, but with 40mm on each side it is slightly larger than the Session and the Actioncam 3, and therefore does not fit into accessories of the GoPro and Actioncam. According to the manufacturer, the waterproof rate is IP64, which stands for International Protection Code and means that the device will be splashed with water from all sides for 10 minutes without damaging the device. In comparison, the GoPro Session is IP68 tested and can operate up to 3 meters underwater according to the IP test. A simple rain shower belongs in the IP63 category. I can't do an IP test now, but I would say that this flap doesn't seem safe enough for IP64. Shortly around, simple rain okay, storm or even underwater under no circumstances. Under the cover is the card slot, a mini USB plug for charging and analog video transmission and a micro HDMI output.
Die dürfen auf keinen Fall nass werden.
The camera has only 2 simple buttons and 3 small LEDs. With this button you can turn the camera on, just hold it down for a few seconds, and then the blue LED will light up. And you can start recording and the LED will start flashing. To stop recording, simply press the button again and the LED will light up permanently. That's why I find it a bit annoying. I expect a light when recording and after the stop, either flashing or simply switched off LED. So it is at least with professional cameras from the film and television sector. To switch the wireless network on and off, we simply have to hold down the shutter Wi-Fi button for about 3 seconds. Without it, we can't control the camera but should turn off the Wi-Fi to save battery power as long as we don't want to change any settings.
Stellungen ändern wollen.
As with all test models, we have a built-in rechargeable battery and the Foxeer is specified with 950 mA, which is not exchangeable. The endurance test has shown that with a recording of full HD and 60 FPS, the recording time is about 58 minutes and therefore better than the session 4, but about 10 minutes after the session 5 and the RunCam. At 4K and 30 FPS, the camera reaches 53 minutes and records 30 minutes longer than the session 5. But one should also say that all 4 cameras become so hot that I could hardly touch them after recordings. The data is stored on a micro SD card with U3 level, and up to 128 GB sized cards are supposed to work. But I have heard from a pilot in our community that his 128 GB card didn't work. I can't test this because I don't have a 128 GB card. I only use 64 GB cards from SanDisk and they work fine.
64 GB große Karten von SanDisk und die funktionieren einwandfrei.
In contrast to the GoPros, the RunCam 3 and the Box have a WDR mode which increases the dynamic range. For comparison, the sessions here offer the Pro Tune mode, but it does not have the same origin. Basically, I would always recommend to switch on the WDR mode in order to be able to display larger light difference better. I find the quality very good and it is also better than with the RunCam. How the WDR mode works, I had simplified in the RunCam 3 review, and if you are interested, you can find the video up here in the info card, but remember, the video has only English subtitles. As far as the settings are concerned, there are actually enough possibilities. I can change, for example, the image gain, color temperature, exposure compensation and even different measurement methods for the exposure compensation. What I miss is that I can set the exposure time. It seems that there is a simple scenes mode selection, which probably selects a short exposure time for sports and a longer exposure time for night. But it's not enough for me personally. I would also like to have a lock mode, so this will not be changed. There are also post-processing settings such as sharpness and effects, but I recommend that you do this on your computer with the editing software.
Zu erledigen.
Basically, there are also features like a photo mode, time-lapse and a loop video function, which will not be interested for most of us FPV pilots, so I won't go into it any further.
Werde ich in diesem Review nicht weiter drauf eingehen.
The included accessories include a simple housing with snap input, a self-adhesive coupling plate, USB cable for charging and updating the camera, as well as introductions in English. In addition, there's a USB cable with which you can get an SD image from the camera and power the camera.
Die Kamera sich mit Strom versorgen lässt.
Lots of words up to here, and so we just have a look at some in-flight recordings and you can guess which recording is the Foxeer Box. And did you know it? So I didn't think it would be so close to the quality of a GoPro Session 5, but I did pull a still image of every video footage so we could take a look at it in detail.
Anschauen können. Mein erster Eindruck ist schon mal sehr gut.
My first impression is very good. I can't see any large compression-related artifacts in the original image. The picture seems to be a little bit overexposed so that we have a little bit more drawing in the shadows. But especially here at the white cars, the light breaks out, which shows us the limits of the dynamic range. If we take a look at the other shots, on the right the Actioncam 3, then we can see very well that the recordings by the internal image processor has got much more saturation and sharpness. What I find better with the Foxeer, since I have then more possibilities in the post.
Ich dann mehr Möglichkeiten in der Post habe. Hier kann man auch noch
Here you can also see that the Foxeer shows more drawing in the shadows. On the edge of the trees you can easily see that the WDR mode is active with the Actioncam because of a ham, which is clearly better with the box.
bei der Box nicht zu sehen ist. Nun noch ein Blick.
One more look at the Session 4, and the first thing I notice is that the picture is much more washed out than with the box. The Session can handle some sharpness, but will not be able to get out the details like the box.
Nun zuletzt noch
Last but not least, the Session 5, and awesome. Very similar picture. And briefly again switching between 4 and 5, but clearly the Session 5 is even more brilliant and has here more details. So I would say that the Session 5 and the box are the two best recordings. The box has a green tint, but I would say that this can be corrected in the post without any problems. The Session is better exposed, but I think the dynamic range of the box is much better.
Umfang von der Box besser. Im Detail
In detail, 200% zoomed, you can see the WDR mode as well as the sharpening of the camera in the box because of a very light ham has been formed. But I would say that the picture of the Session is not as detailed as that of the box. Really impressive good.
wirklich beeindruckend.
The box also has the ability to switch for some resolutions onto Supervision, which is the equivalent of GoPro's SuperView. You can see more, but with both manufacturers the picture is distorted. I personally would like to have a circle also pictured round, so this function is not very helpful for me. Personally, I see only a small use of sound in the FPV area, but the sound quality is okay, but doesn't reach the attenuation of the Session 5. The box does not come with a display and therefore requires an app to set up the camera. The app is available for free download for Android and iOS devices. It is quickly installed, but there were also some problems. I have a Nexus 5 with Android 6 and it is not possible to connect the camera to the mobile phone. So I had to organize another mobile phone with at least Android 7. The first time you connect with your mobile phone, you will glide through a small wizard, which is nice and helpful. From then on, you find the settings quickly and easily. First, I wanted to talk about the features of the app in this video, because some of them are not explained in the manual or not quite clear. But I quickly realized that it would go beyond the scope of this review, so I will create a second video, which you will find here in the info card as soon as it is online.
Infokarte finden werdet, sobald es online ist.
As I said at the beginning, there's a little story to tell. This begins with the fact that we had received a box from Foxeer before the official sales, with the request to create a review. Of course, we were very happy and also started to work until the first problems arose. And there were even more problems until the point where we told Foxeer that we were only doing honest reviews and that would be more of a camera we couldn't recommend. But we would be willing to write down all the problems and write a kind of a test report. We thought it was important to give Foxeer a chance to challenge against GoPro. So we waited a little bit and there was a new Foxeer box in the house, which was running better and more stable. The first one was also loaded with the latest firmware, and so we already had 2 cameras available for testing. But then I thought in my subconscious it would be better to do a crash test and fly against a metal pillar.
Einen Crashtest machen könnte und bin einfach mal so gegen eine Metallsäule geflogen.
Yeah, well, the recording stops shortly before the crash because the micro SD has flown out of the slot due to the crash. As a result, the file could not be played back easily, which had to be saved by a repair program. With the latest firmware 2.0, they already fixed this problem. Now, as you can see, the camera got a good blow on the side and not to be expected, otherwise it has smashed the windshield once. The camera can still be switched on and you can even use the app to access the camera and change settings. But the sensor seems to be damaged because you can't receive and record any more pictures. Here I would say that Foxeer can hardly be accused of a structural deficiency. A GoPro might have experienced the same thing.
Vielleicht genauso ergangen. Nun, meine
Well, I already had my flight comparison footage at this time, but all the other tests were still missing. But the other camera suddenly didn't turn on after I had connected to the charger. So I called Foxeer again, and after a long wait they sent us a third camera, which should work even better and more stable after further updates. Out of curiosity, I wanted to try again now, and it was about 1.5 months ago, just to see if the defective box turns on again. So I plugged it into the charger and amazingly it works. Well, glad that I have 2 cameras, but this problem has now occurred again to the test end. Something like that really annoys me, and I hope it's only the case with this particular camera. But let's just look at the conclusion.
Einfach mal das Fazit. Also,
to make GoPro fanboys speechless, it is probably not enough, but I would say that with the Foxeer Box, a serious player in the Actioncam area has been added. The picture quality is enormous and can keep up very well with the Session 5. Especially if we look at the price of around 155 euros, which is just half of the GoPro. It is also very positive to note that the camera is undergoing further development and that they didn't put anything on the market that is difficult to use due to the children's illness. However, in order to achieve the same GoPro feeling in terms of reliability and user-friendliness, Foxeer has to add something further. It is worth maintaining that I can't turn the camera on anymore, and I really hope that this is only because of this particular camera. The other one works perfectly, and I'm very curious if you can report the same problems. For the app, I would like to have some features that it remembers which camera I have chosen last time, and that it connects itself automatically to the camera like Actioncam 3 does. Then the camera is not waterproof, which is a really pity for an Actioncam. Personally, I'm not disappointed by the box, but rather very sad that it was not able to catch up on the last few meters of the Session 5. The picture of the Fox is loosely at eye level with the Session 5 that costs twice as much, because price in connection with the picture quality for a 4K camera are already very good, and this should not be ignored. Once again, it's so fantastic to have you here. I hope you enjoyed it. If yes, then of course I'm happy about a like and subscribe. Otherwise, tell me what you didn't like. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment or visit our Facebook page Erster. In order to be up to date at all times, of course, you can also follow us on Instagram. This was my first time I synchronized myself in English, and I hope you could understand me well. If so, let me know. Otherwise, tell me what I can do better. I say goodbye from the Erster Tech Lab, and until then, fly safe and have fun.